Welcome to Creatively Using the Creative Suite. Here's your host, Eric Burnskill. Hi and welcome to this week's episode of the Creatively Using the Creative Suite podcast. My name is Eric Burnskill, and this week I'm going to start a two-part series where we're going to finally design a magazine feature design. So this design is going to cover a 2 A4 size spread that we're going to set up in Illustrator next, and we're going to design it in Illustrator this week, but set the page up using text, the images, and all that fun InDesign stuff next week. So we're going to start in Illustrator this week designing the background itself. And I'm going to start a new file new. And because I'm going to do a double spread A4, that means the final size will end up being 2 A4 sizes next to each other. And by the nature of the A system, a 2 A4 equals an A3. So I'm going to select an orientation, so I have the lying down page, and I'm going to select A3. So that means I have the appropriate size. There's one more thing to remember when we're dealing with a print document, and that's to set up the bleed. It's currently set to 3.175 millimeters, which is the appropriate bleed. If you're using inches system, it's going to be 0.125 inches. Alright, so I'm going to click OK to this, and you'll see now that we have a black border indicating the usual end of our document, with a red border around indicating the bleed area. So any design we do needs to go out to the bleed area so that it can or it could get cut off when we print the design later on without any vital information being lost. Right, so I'm going to start here by grabbing my rectangle tool, and I'm going to drag out a rectangle to the bleed area. I'm going to set the stroke here to none. And the fill color is going to get sort of a dark green, but still clear green color. This is going to pose as the base, and I'm actually going to lock my layer here with the background because I don't need it anymore. At least not for now. So I'm going to create a new layer. It's going to be layer 2. And I'm going to bring up my symbols. So window, come down to symbols. And from here, I'm going to use the box at the bottom here, the button, where it now says Open Symbol Library. And I'm going to go and find my nature symbols. And I can close down the main symbol library, but the nature symbols is because I want to do a nature theme here. So I'm going to start by dragging in this group of trees here. I'm going to choose and start by right-clicking on this and choose Break Link to Symbol. So it's going to be its own set of paths, basically. Instead of being the symbol that it is, I can change it and manipulate it in any way that I want. I'm going to size this up, and I'm going to place it near the edge here. Actually, let's do fairly a bit larger than that. Okay, so I'm going to place it at the edge, but what I want to do is remove the far right tree here and just squish them together a little bit. So I'm going to select the group and double click to go into isolation mode, double click again until I get 2 groups in, where I can then remove one tree by just selecting the individual tree, saying move them a bit tighter, sort of like this. Maybe take the final one, scale it down just a little bit. It's going to be a baby tree going slightly off the page. If I now click the back arrow at the top of my document, I can back out to the standard level here, and I can then again manipulate the entire group if I want to. So I think this is going to look very nice as far as our trees are concerned. Okay, so before I move ahead, I'm going to go back into my background layer, unlock it, and again choose the rectangular marquee, and from the bleed edge, from the bottom edge, I'm going to drag up a bit of a rectangular selection, and instead of filling this with green, I'm going to double click and fill this instead with a brown earth color. And this is going to be, and it's going to emulate a ground setting here. You need to make sure it goes all the way to the bleed. Right. So with the ground in set here, I'm going to just add a few more elements to add some depth into this. So I'm going to lock again the background layer so I don't accidentally edit anything on it. And on the second layer, I'm going to pull in a few more symbols. There's a little here, foliage 2. I'm going to drag that in, send this, right click, arrange, send to back. And I can place this in here. Now behind the tree, so I'm sending it to the further back on the layer it's on. So I can place this, and holding down my Alt key on the PC or Option key on the Mac, I can, make sure I drag a duplicate now of this foliage symbol. And I can rotate this around. I'm just going to create sort of a bush series here. I'm going to have it just be behind these trees. I'm going to add, it's adding a bit of depth to the entire image by just adding some more random things in here. And there we go. I think we have a little bit more depth. Maybe we can add, say, one more and place it here in front to just finish off the feeling. Right, so we have that. And just for the sake of things, pull in this butterfly. I'm going to place it up in the top left-hand corner. Slightly just off page. You're still going to see it's a butterfly even if it's cut off. So we're nearing completion here. We have a big space in the middle for our article to go. We have space at the bottom where we can perhaps put some interesting facts or links together with the article, as well as the page number. And it also helps our design, which we created here. If you want to take this a step further, you can still go ahead with the different nature symbols here and just drag in. You can add some leaves and make sure it stays looking good by adding in a few more things. For example, if you want a little spider in here, hey, why not? Why not add a spider? It's the details that count. So even by just adding in, you can add in a spider. And why not adding in a couple of trails? So I'm going to do that as a final thing. We have a spider in here. In place, I'm going to select my pencil tool in here, and I'm using my Wacom pressure sensitive tablet. I'm just going to add a little line here, path for the spider to walk. Let's just redo that. I went up and down here, so. And I'm going to make sure I pick a slightly lighter color here. That looks good. And to make this into dashed line, I'm going to go to Window, come down to Stroke. Make sure dashed line here is ticked. And I can select how much gap and how much dash I'm going to do. This, I think, looks fairly good. Let's increase the gap here. Let's remove the other settings here. So I think, let's tweak it. 7.5, let's do 7.6. See how this looks. I think this is going to look good. So when I have a little imaginary path that the spider's walked, I can even place him at the end of that path to make it even more realistic. And with that, I think I have sort of this good design that can be used in magazine articles to give sort of depth and a good design that is going to draw the reader in. Obviously, spending some more time on this, adding more details, will probably make this a bit nicer. But this is a good starting point for a good design. So that's it for this week's episode of the Creatively Using the Creative Suite podcast. Next week, we're going to take this into InDesign and do the final bit of the design. But until then, have a good week, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.